Nothing has brought me greater joy than watching the Walt Disney Company absolutely panic over the last few weeks. They're mad at South Park because they're making fun of their woke ideologies, constantly race swapping or religion swapping everything in their movies.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Disney recently dropped the teaser for their live-action version of Snow White, and to call the reaction lukewarm would be generous. The trailer was flooded with an avalanche of dislikes, clocking in at around 850,000 compared to a paltry 70,000 likes. The internet wasted no time tearing into the teaser, with the comments section turning into a roast session of epic proportions. Many viewers called it one of the most hated trailers in recent memory, with critics and fans alike baffled by how a beloved classic could be reimagined in such an unrecognizable and divisive way. For Disney, this is shaping up to be yet another misstep in their streak of controversial remakes. The project seemed off course from the start. Disney's first controversial move was replacing the Seven Dwarfs with a group of so-called magical forest creatures. This decision, apparently made to avoid reinforcing stereotypes, managed to upset almost everyone. Members of the dwarf acting community expressed frustration at being excluded from a film that could have offered them significant roles. Faced with backlash, Disney pivoted yet again, announcing that the dwarfs would appear after all, but this time rendered in CGI. The result? A bizarrely artificial aesthetic that feels disconnected from the live-action premise.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
Instead of blending seamlessly into the world, the digital dwarfs come across as lifeless, leaving audiences to question why Disney even bothered with a live-action adaptation if it was going to lean so heavily on computer-generated imagery. It's astonishing how far Disney has strayed from what made the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs such a cultural touchstone. The 1937 classic was not only Disney's first feature-length animated film, but a groundbreaking achievement in cinema. Its legacy remains untouchable, cherished by generations. However, this remake seems determined to rewrite history in a way that alienates its most loyal fans. For years, audiences have criticized Disney for injecting heavy-handed political agendas into their projects, but Snow White appears to be the breaking point for many. The studio's fixation on modernizing its content has resulted in a version of Snow White that feels more like a hollow shell than a tribute to its predecessor. The backlash intensified with the casting of Rachel Zegler in the title role. While her acting chops aren't in question, Zegler's public comments about the original film ignited a firestorm of criticism. She called the 1937 version outdated and ridiculed its romantic storyline, describing the prince as a creepy stalker. Fans of the original were outraged, interpreting her remarks as dismissive and disrespectful toward a film they hold dear. What made matters worse was how Disney leaned into this narrative, using Zegler's comments as part of the promotional campaign. It felt like they were marketing the remake by tearing down the original, a strategy that unsurprisingly alienated longtime Disney fans. The studio's attempt to course-correct was awkward at best. After Zegler's remarks went viral and drew heavy criticism, Disney scrambled to present her in a more favorable light. Subsequent interviews painted her as respectful of the original story, but by then, the damage was done. Audiences saw these efforts as little more than a clumsy PR stunt, and the initial disdain lingered. Instead of rebuilding trust with fans, the studio's reaction only deepened the perception that they were out of touch. The reimagining of the dwarfs was another lightning rod for criticism. When actor Peter Dinklage criticized the portrayal of dwarfs in the original story, Disney seemingly panicked and scrapped the idea of including them altogether. This decision angered both fans and dwarf actors, many of whom saw it as a missed opportunity for representation. When behind-the-scenes photos leaked showing stand-ins for the magical creatures, the internet exploded with mockery. The characters' costumes and overall appearance were ridiculed for their cheapness, and Disney was accused of pandering in the most superficial way. Later, the revelation that these creatures would be replaced by CGI dwarves only added to the frustration. The final product looks unnatural and jarring, a far cry from the charm of the original animated characters. The overuse of CGI has been a recurring complaint in Disney's recent live-action remakes. What could be an opportunity to showcase stunning sets and practical effects often ends up feeling sterile and lifeless. In Snow White, everything from the dwarfs to the forest animals has been replaced by digital counterparts, leaving the film devoid of the tactile warmth that made the original so enchanting. Instead of crafting an immersive world, the reliance on CGI creates an uncanny valley effect that disconnects audiences from the story. Then there's the issue of Snow White's character. She hates the role LOL, weird.